What do I think of Ars Pizza? I like Ars Pizza as a cultural figure, like what he represents culturally, especially in streetwear. But his brand itself, I've never really been a fan of it. I don't like get it. I don't know what is interested. Like when I look at brands, I always have to think what's different about your brand compared to other brands, or what's unique, or what story are you trying to tell? And when I look at all the products that Ars Pizza puts out, his brand gives me the vibe of someone that's just trying to hustle for money rather than really being passionate about making clothes in a sense of like really wanting to put something um let me not say valuable, because I think most people make valuable things. That's maybe not the right word choice, but it seems like it's more like it's not really too much his passion. It seems like it's like a money grab type of thing. There's not a lot of thought going into the garments. Personally, that's how it seems to me. How to judge the quality of a small brand from far away? If you don't live in a big city, I usually just purchase online and hope for the best. Yeah, I don't think it's actually possible to truly know the quality of something by, viewing it online or viewing it far away. Unfortunately, there are ways that you can try in terms of going on forums and seeing what people say. I wouldn't look at online reviews, because sometimes online reviews are a bit dodgy. Like people have certain incentives to give positive reviews, but if you go on like Reddit and you just type quality of so and so brand, what you're going to read is probably going to be the truth versus what you read on the website or articles by magazines that are probably, paid ads and all this type of stuff. So that's probably your best bet. Like go on all these forums where it's going to be genuine opinions. Can we consider Chrome Hearts high fashion or just a cult? I think Chrome Hearts is high fashion. I think how people adopt it is a totally other thing. And Chrome Hearts is not just clothing, right? It's anything. Like Chrome Hearts was making custom anything, a lot of jewelry and accessories. So I wouldn't just say it's like high fashion. It's like a high end brand in total. But the way people have adopted it, some people in more crass ways than others, but I still think it's a high-end brand, to be honest. Let's see. Chrome Hearts products that I've seen end up in Japan are far more tasteful compared to what the US market seems to gravitate towards. But that's probably because like a lot of like rappers and NBA players just want like those Chrome Heart jeans with crosses all like embroidered all over it, and it's like looks kind of horrible. Rachel says, I'm honestly kind of over big luxury brands these days in terms of what you get for the price. So I want to try small brands. Yeah, that's good, because I think the big brands, they have gotten carried away a bit and they just think they can get away with anything. And I think the more we, protest with our wallets and our purses, the more these brands will be forced into a corner of doing the right thing and making good quality garments and stuff like that. What's your favorite brand at the moment? Mine has been Bottega Veneta since the Daniel Lee era. That's interesting, because I don't really buy a lot of clothing. And obviously, Andre Meister will always be historically my favorite brand, but it's not my favorite brand right now in terms of, I wouldn't buy Andy right now. I literally went to the store 2 weeks ago in Antwerp, and the stuff there was not interesting at all. Like, at all. I'm trying to think, what's my favorite brand now? I have no idea. And because, I don't... And the clothing I do buy is not new clothing. Like, I bought a Dries Van Noten piece when I was in Antwerp, but it's from like 5 seasons ago. So it's not really new. So I don't really know, to be honest. I can just say I don't have a favorite brand. Do you consider Ralph Lauren as a brand worth discussion? They do pretty credible runway shows. Their sales have bucked the recent downward trend, and the alumnus have gone on to big brands, but no talk. I talk about Ralph Lauren sometimes. I mean, Ralph Lauren was really recently, popular and relevant because they did the uniforms for Team USA in the Olympics, and I used that as a chance to talk about Ralph Lauren. Actually, on my channel, I have a video. Yeah, so I have this video on YouTube, right? The history of Ralph Lauren. So I feel like I've kind of discussed Ralph Lauren, at least in the past. It's not like I think he's not worth discussing. I just think that Ralph Lauren is one of those brands that has a very classic look that won't deviate in any way. So there's nothing interesting I can add runway to runway, season to season about Ralph Lauren because it's kind of all the same. So it would be kind of boring if I kept saying the same points every single season. It would be really boring. But I do think that Ralph Lauren is very relevant, and I really like Purple Label. Let's see. I find it interesting how a lot of clothing that is advertised as gender neutral / inclusive just means it's gender neutral if you're thin. Yeah, I talk about this all the time. I like the idea of gender neutral in the sense that we're trying to say as a society that men and women can wear anything, which I definitely agree with, and I would always push. However, that thing kind of breaks down because someone like me, my shoulders are really broad, and a lot of guys have broader shoulders than women on average, right? A lot of women, their waists are smaller but their hips are bigger. So even if you try to make stuff gender neutral, so long as people aren't like ultra skinny, male and female bodies are going to be extremely different, to where it's actually really hard for something to be universally gender neutral unless it's like some oversized jacket or just some wide trousers or something like that. But anything sculptural around the body, you have to be like crazy skinny, like 10% body fat, 9% body fat, for it to be gender neutral. So yeah, I kind of find it weird. I think sometimes we have really reductive conversations around gender neutral clothing, or some designers literally just make like a streetwear collection and call it gender neutral. And it's like, it is gender neutral, but why do you have to market it as that when it is just a hoodie and sweatpants? Like, it's kind of weird. I think there are things that are easier to market as gender neutral than clothing because male and female bodies are so different on average. I think things like fragrances, there should be more of a push because it's a smell. That should be pushed as gender neutral, or like bags, accessories should be gender neutral because anyone can carry a bag, whether you're tall, big, small, you know, it doesn't matter. Those are things that I think the gender neutral conversation is a bit more, it makes more sense. With the clothing, it just depends on what type of clothing it is, and it doesn't work for everything, to be honest. Ayo, do you know anything about declining services at luxury brands? When I used to shop luxury in the 2000s, everything I bought was tailored to me automatically. None of these kind of services now. Yeah, what happened to that? I remember quite a while ago, actually, when you used to go into luxury stores, there used to be someone in the back who could like just tailor things quickly or make quick alterations. And like if you had, you know, an issue with your fabric, maybe like a button came undone, you could walk into the store and they would take your garment to this person in the back and they would reattach the button. I don't see that anymore. Maybe that's just brands cutting corners as they have been since. Let's see. Hate to say it, but Off-White doesn't need a new creative director. It just needs to fizzle out genuinely. I kind of agree with you, to be honest. I think it's totally directionless now. I just think there's no gain from it continuing to go on other than just some company somewhere is making money. Yeah. And the way that they sold the brand and what day they sold it specifically was nasty work. That was disgusting work. Off-White is pointless now. Just stop it. It was going downhill when Virgil was here. I think actually it was going uphill when Virgil was here because the collections became more elaborate. The ideas became stronger. I think Virgil's best years creatively were his years at Louis Vuitton. I think he had some sensational collections at Louis Vuitton. And I think kind of the framework of Louis Vuitton kind of helped him grow as a designer in general. And a lot of that came back to Off-White. Not as well as Louis Vuitton, but I think it came back to Off-White. And I think it was actually going uphill until he unfortunately passed. When do you think the luxury business will finally crash? There are only so many wealthy clients to sell cheaply made products to and labor markets to exploit. Yeah, exactly. And I always say this. I think the luxury market has trapped itself. I give it like 20 to 30 years and I think everything is going to like topple on itself. They've trapped themselves. They can't go back. The only way is forward until they literally can't go forward anymore. And the whole thing just crashes. And then they have to start from the beginning. And by then, the brands that have been more sustainable and have been growing sustainably will take their place. And then it might just be a cycle where then those brands get bought by billionaires and tycoons and then they get watered down. And the circle of life. But what you have to do as a consumer, you have to catch that moment where the luxury system breaks down and the new brands are rising up before they're bought by business tycoons. That golden moment there you need to buy all the clothing when it's high quality, and then just be the 50 and 60-year-old that was like, yeah, clothing is so bad these days. Like, I have like some archive this designer, and like it's way better. Like, clothing is just not the same like it was. I definitely want to be that 50-year-old for sure. Do you think that small local fashion brands and designers have any chance of really coming back? Some, some. It depends, but it's so hard to compete with these big brands these days because they just take up so much market share. It's really, really hard. You have to have backing, whether you're winning awards. You have to have people on your side. A lot of things have to happen for a brand to really work because, especially during COVID, so many brands went bust. So many. Big brands too. I give it 2 to 3. Oh my God, Vontae. I give it 2 to 3 more years. A lot of these brands are staying afloat from perfumes, trinkets, and alcohol. I mean, it's true, but I don't. 2 to 3 years is soon. I don't think it's gonna happen that soon. I give them a good like 20 to 30 years because I think they still have so much money. Like, it's kind of like, all those tech companies that their whole business model is to lose money but then exit. So they're like burning through millions and millions and millions, and they're just hoping that they can exit before they run out of money. I feel like the luxury brands will get to that point, and for them to burn through all those billions would take years and years and years and years and years, even if the most incompetent person was at the helm of all these brands. So I don't even think they could burn through their billions in 3 years, to be honest. Even if like they made no money, they were just burning through their billions. It would be really difficult, to be honest. So yeah, there's too many people wanting to launch their own brands and just create tracksuits with graphics. I guess the reason for that is because there's not much skill that's required to make sweatpants and graphics, because all you need to do is find a supplier and then make some quick ass logo on Photoshop, which anyone can do if you just watch a few YouTube tutorials. So I think the barrier to entry is really low. That's why a lot of people do that. It's way harder to actually make your own patterns, make something unique, do fabric development and research. It's so hard to do that, right? So people don't do that because it's difficult and no one even knows how to do that or where you even start with that. How do you learn to make patterns? Like, people don't have a clue. So that's probably why. I think there are layers to the bubble burst because it will be mid-sized brands that will fail to secure further investments. Major brands have to exhaust vast amounts of resources before death. Very true. Which is why I was saying about them burning through billions and billions. It would take them long just to even do that. So they would be able to survive, where smaller brands, literally, so many brands are on edge. Like, so many fashion brands are in a situation where they have, let's say, 60 worldwide stockists right now. If they have a bad season, and for them, what a bad season would be is if 20 stockists drop them. So from 60, they have 40 stockists. That is enough to kill the brand completely. That is enough to end the brand. So a lot of these smaller mid-sized brands are literally on edge. Would you say the rose pricing is commensurate with its quality? I guess in the sense that sometimes, let me just say sometimes, because I think the row, not everything that they make is good quality. I have seen some issues with the quality of some of their garments, but I think for the most part, I'm okay, or I don't have any issues with the row being expensive, even if it's immensely overpriced. You're basically buying a lifestyle, not necessarily the fact that the garment is, expensive to make. But a lot of their garments are actually expensive to make, like really expensive, some of them. And I know this because more and more, the roles that I work in behind the scenes in the industry are more like working with people that work in production, and I'm getting more involved with stuff like that. So I'm really starting to understand the price of what it takes to produce a certain thing with a certain fabric and certain ways. And some of the stuff that the row produces, damn, even to make that stuff is really expensive. So I think the row gets away with it. I give the row a pass for some of their prices, even though not every time is it worth it. I mean, it's never really worth it because it is kind of immensely overpriced, but in the sense that at least you're getting a good product if you're paying all that money. Tosin says, one question I have, do you think this designer merry-go-round is the new norm or a transition phase between the next era of long-term creative directors? I I think it's more of a transition phase, to be honest, because I think that all these designers that go into different houses, I expect some of them to be there for a long time. Like, I expect Matteo Blasi to be at Chanel for a very long time. I expect Luis Trotter to be at Bottega for quite a while. Like, Veronica Leoni should be at, Calvin Klein for a while. I think Claire White Keller, it seems like she's going to be at Uniqlo for a while. Like, she has plans of changing the everyday clothing at Uniqlo, right? I think Sarah Burton is going to be at Givenchy for a while. Like, all of those appointments, I can't see any of them leaving after like 1 or 2 years. What other merry-go-round have we had, guys? Remind me. But for the most part, I think all those appointments, like even the new designer at Juice Van Noten, for example, Julian, even like Matthew Ryder at Celine, like I think all these guys, they're all gonna be there for a while. I think they're all gonna be there for a while. I think it's more of a transition phase, to be fair, than like this merry-go-round is going to constantly happen. Why do we still talk about high-end fashion brands when they have barely any impact on fashion today? I don't think that's true. I think they have a lot of impact, to be honest. If you think of like the Zaras and the H&Ms and stuff, they are very much still on standby to see what the trends are in high fashion, and then they copy everything. They're literally on standby. That's why if you go to Zara now, they have their version of the Alexander McQueen sneakers, and they have their version, like every single brand that has a product that sells, they copy it. So I do think it's very much relevant, and I think there's a pop cultural relevance because a lot of celebrities are associated with these brands. So that becomes a big conversation point. I also think that my interest in high-end brands comes from the fact that they have so many resources, so they can try out so many different like design techniques and stuff. So that's what really interests me with those brands also. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.